Welcome to episode 1 on image blending. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how blend modes can be used to blend two images together. This is a fast and simple technique that can help take your images to the next level. So let's get started. First, I'm just going to drag a couple of images off to Photoshop. You're going to see that these images open up as two different tabs, which is fine. I'll show you how to bring these images together in the next section. So you see they've opened up into Camera Raw. So we're going to go ahead and just open the images. We're going to process them one at a time in a minute. All right, so you can see we have this one image here of the stars, and we're going to blend that image in with this image here of balloons that are being lit for a glow one evening. And you can see we have a nice dark sky. There's like one little star right here inside my brush, but we're going to emphasize that it's a night sky. So here we're going to use this image to do that. So let's start off by actually bringing out and emphasizing the stars. So to do that, I am using Photoshop Creative Cloud. So one of the benefits of the Creative Cloud version of Photoshop is that it's easy to get back into Camera Raw. So we're going to do that. Now, if you had an older version, you would probably want to do these steps when the image first opens up in Camera Raw for you. So here we are in this image. We're going to use the highlight slider to brighten up the stars a little bit. We're going to drag the whites up a little bit. You can see all the stars starting to pop out. Maybe just bring the highlights back a little bit. And we're going to add some clarity and maybe even a little bit of vibrance. So we're just going to say, okay, pretty simple. And there you go. Stars like jumping out at us. And we can always modify how much or how little this is going to impact the next image by using opacity. So it's great to get this started this way. Now you can see that I've got these fairly dark edges here. That's just in a tree actually. That's just the ground. I was shooting in a sort of a canyon area. So we're going to work around that when we bring these images together. So to get your images together, there's a number of ways to do that, but I find the simplest way is to use the Move tool. So we're going to go ahead and choose Move, and that is this tool up here in the top right. Or you can hit the V key and you'll get this mouse with a little bunch of arrows against it. Go ahead, you left click and drag. When you bring it over and you hover, you'll get to the next image. If you were to let go now, though, the image will not come in. You actually have to come into the image and put your mouse over and then drop it. And you can see how this is now landed in there. And now we can move it around the way we'd like. And you can see now we have a second layer. So we're going to go ahead and turn this into a smart object. One of the reasons that we will do that is because we can continue to manipulate it and not have any adverse effect. We could have created a smart object before we brought it over, so either way is fine. But in this case, I'm not going to change anything about the way I've processed it, so I didn't need to do it before, but this allows me to manipulate the size of the image, make those decisions without losing any quality. So I'm going to go ahead and free transform. So I did that by selecting Command or Control T. But if you prefer to use the menus, you can come over to Edit, and you can see Free Transform, and there's the keystroke. So go ahead and choose that. We get these bounding bars. Now this will allow us, one, to move the image around, but also to stretch and change it. So one of the things I'm going to do, though, so I have a little bit of room to work with, is push this image away, zoom out a bit. To do that, you can use Command or Control minus, and you can be able to drag it back. So we're going to go ahead and just stretch this image a little bit. Now I'm doing that without losing its perspective by holding down the Shift key while I drag on the corners. So we're going to go ahead and set our stars where we think they're going to work best. And we might need to move this around in a minute, but we'll see how this goes to start with. So the simplest way, instead of trying to mask this in, is actually to use blend modes. Now, the blend mode is over here above the layers in the layers panel. Right now it says normal. Whenever you start with a layer, that's how it comes in. So now we're going to go ahead and change this to lighten. And when I do that, you can see right away that only the stars have come out. And what lighten does is it allows the lighter pixels in the layer that you're on at the moment to come through and blend with the layer below it. So this actually works out really, really well. And you'll see where we have the lighter areas in the balloons, we don't see stars, but where we have darker areas in the balloon, we do. So the way we're going to solve that is by adding a mask. So you come down to the bottom of the layers panel down here, we see my mouse, And we select the little icon that looks a little bit like a camera, a rectangle with a circle in it, and we get a mask. Now, masks work where white reveals. So basically what this mask is currently doing is revealing everything on this thumbnail that you see. And since we don't want it to show on the balloons, we're going to go ahead and select our brush tool, which is this tool here, or you can hit the B key to select it. And we're going to make sure that our brush has a little bit of a hardness to it, not a bunch. Go ahead. We can work the size in a minute, but for now, this is a good size. And we're going to paint with black. So we need to make sure that our foreground over here, our foreground color is black. Black hides. So by painting now, making sure we have a full opacity. So you do that at the top of the screen in the options bar for the brush. We start painting out. And as you can see as I do this, it's pretty simple. As I get to the edge, I want to be a little bit more careful. Maybe get a little bit smaller here. It's pretty easy to get these stars on the balloons to disappear. So we'll go just draw right over all the people, because obviously we wouldn't have stars on the ground. And then we'll clean up the balloons over on this side. Again, a little bit more careful as we get to the edge, just a little bit smaller. To make your brush larger and smaller, you can use the left and right bracket keys. So right next to the P, the left bracket will actually make the brush smaller, and the right bracket will make the brush bigger. So again, get up to the edges. And that's it. So pretty simple technique to get those stars to pop out and enhance the image that we're, in this particular case, this balloon image. Now from here, we can go about processing the rest of the image. So if, for one thing, if we decide that we've got too many stars or they're too bright, we can certainly modify that by just changing the opacity. You can see by just taking that down a little bit, they're a little bit less in your face. So if we want, we can now also modify and post-process the balloons themselves. We can do that. I unlock the layer. So in Photoshop CC, you can just click the layer and click on the lock once with a left click, and it'll unlock. If you have an older version, you have to double click the lock and then hit OK. So in this case, again, I will take this into Camera Raw, and I will work the balloons a little bit, adding a little bit of contrast, adding a little bit of clarity. Might want to increase the foreground just a little bit, brighten it up just a hair. So what I did here was go ahead and use the graduated filter, this little icon up here on the left, and then I just increased the exposure, and you just drag and pull. So left click, drag and pull to pick your areas. Now once you've got the filter down, you can actually change it. You can move it up from the bottom, giving having like less of a fade or less of a feather of that particular mask or filter, and more impact below. You can grab the filter and change its angle should you want to do that, and you can just grab the whole thing and move it around. So you have a lot of options with this tool. Go ahead and do that. Maybe add even a little bit more clarity to the ground where these people are, although I kind of like that it's a little bit dark. And there you go. So right now you see that there are no stars, but that's because I'm on that one layer. So once we hit OK, that change is now taken effect here in the balloons, as well as we have our stars. All right, so that's example one. So for our next example, basically of the exact same technique, just a different type of image, we're going to go ahead and use these 5 images. So we have a city scene, which you'll see in a second, and then 4 different scenes of different fireworks, but we're going to use them in different ways. So we're going to go ahead, grab those, drag those off into Photoshop. Again, because I can get into Camera Raw later, I'm going to go ahead and open up all the images. And we didn't get them all. Select all and open. Come on. All right. So the cityscape right here is going to be our base image. And you can see that it's leaning back a little bit. So the first thing I want to do is change its perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and unlock the layer and then turn this into a smart object. And then I'm going to choose Camera Raw and Lens Correction. And I'm going to stand the buildings up a little bit by using the vertical slider till they look just about right. Now from here, that might have been a little bit too far. Back up a little bit. Okay. Now, because it's obviously kind of lost the image up here in the front, we're going to just use scale to bring the image forward to fill the screen. And there's a bunch of different ways to do this. This is just only one way. For now, I'm not going to process the image though. I'm just going to leave it as it is, just fixed. So there you go. You can see it's fixed. All right. So we have 3 different sets of fireworks. We have this set of fireworks here, which is obviously part of the finale. And all I'm going to use in this is the water. Because I want to get the reflection. We have this set of explosions, this, our base, and then this set, and then lastly, these last 2. So we're going to go ahead and create an image with all of these particular pieces. So let's go back to our cityscape. Now, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and push out the image a little bit by using the Control and Command minus, just so we have a little space. Okay, so after we select the crop image, we're going to go ahead and we're going to expand up a little bit, and you can see that we get a transparency here, and we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and it's going to fill in. Now the reason it filled in and I didn't actually have to do any content in Aware is because I had already changed the perspective of this image, and when I changed the perspective and stood the buildings up, I actually made my image smaller by using scale. So in this particular instance, because that image already existed, there was already pixels for it, when I expanded the sky again, those pixels came back in. So that was why that ended up happening so fast, and I didn't have to do anything else. I will show you momentarily, though, how to content aware scale and add pixels where they didn't exist to begin with. So anyway, so here we are. We have our image ready to sort of start taking on the fireworks. So first we're going to go ahead and start off with this image where, as I mentioned, we're going to use the reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and use the crop tool again here. I'm going to start by backing the image off again, Command Control minus. We're going to go ahead and extend just a little bit. So because what we really want to do is replicate some of this reflection, just make more of it. So what I did just there was go ahead and unlock it so I would get transparency instead of a white background. Now what you're going to do this is do the same thing we just did with the sky on the other image, which is use the crop tool, drag down to create the space that we want to fill. Now we're going to use the rectangle marquee tool. We're going to go ahead and select above the transparencies the water we're going to replicate. Once we've got our box created here, our selection created, we go to Edit, Content Aware Scale, and go ahead and select that. And now you'll see that it's changed from a selection to getting some bounding bars. And all we need to do is drag the water down. And you'll see that all it did is stretch that water out. Now, there's only so far that you can go with this. It's not a perfect solution. Sometimes it works absolutely right. Sometimes it'll start making it look a little weird. But in this image, this is going to be enough, and it's going to be just fine. So we go ahead and hit Enter to save the adjustment, and then just Control or Command D, or select and deselect, which is no longer available, to get rid of our selection. So now we're ready to go ahead. We'll crop one more time just to bring this up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now we're ready to move this image into our other scene. So we hit the V key for move, and then we go and hover until we find the right one, which is right here. We go ahead, bring our mouse back in, let go with a click, and now we can move the image around. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure is that we get the ground level of the buildings in line with the ones that we have. So to do that, an easy way is to choose blend mode called difference. And this allows you to see between the two images and where the differences are. Now, I don't really care that my buildings are different and lined up differently. That's not of importance to me. All I really want to do is get the ground in the same level. So here you can see the background image where it's really bright right along here. And then this is the image that we're lining up with our reflection. So we're just going to go ahead and line these two up. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect for what we're using in this particular image. Just going to get close. So for now, that's probably good. We're going to go ahead and hit enter and go ahead and make this back to normal because we want to see the water. So now we want to mask out the fireworks because we're not using these. This is too much going on. We want to make it a little bit more subtle. So we go ahead and choose mask again. White mask, meaning we're revealing currently the current layer. And now we want to either paint out with black. So you can see that starting to disappear. And of course, that's not, I'm just painting in the sky. You see it disappear that way. Or we can use a gradient mask to pull down, so we can do the same exact thing and start revealing what we had underneath. This is just a little bit faster way to get that to happen, and then we can clean it up with the brush. So basically you choose the gradient tool. If you don't see this on your screen, it usually is hidden below the paint bucket tool. So it just depends on which you use more frequently, or if you've never used it, it'll be behind the paint bucket. So you go ahead and pick the gradient tool. You want to make sure that you're on the linear gradient, and then you want to make sure you're going from black to transparent. That way it can be additive, and you just keep dragging down. Now that we're getting down here, we can use the brush to clean up the rest of it. So we go back to our brush tool. A little bit of a hard edge is also fine, and now we can just start painting. Now if you want to drag a straight line across, go ahead and left click with the brush, move it to the other side, holding down the shift key, and then just kind of tapping back and forth, and you'll see that I'm starting to draw a nice straight line across that. We have a little bit here that we just want to get rid of. So here, just kind of painting off this edge. We make sure that we've got it all cleaned up so we don't have any crazy overlays of bridges, and we are set. Now we have a reflection. Now, I don't really want to drag the reflection out any further because it'll start looking sort of all messed up and pixely. So for this, we're just going to go ahead now and crop a little bit of that water back out. All right. So there we go. Now we have reflection. Now we need to know what we're reflecting. We're going to start adding in the fireworks. So we're going to go ahead and hit, oops, sorry, not one of those. We're going to close this because we're done with it. That way we don't get it confused with others. And we're going to go ahead and grab the fireworks. Now in this case, I don't really need to do any cropping or changing. All I want to do is grab it. So I like to be out of the crop tool. I think it's just a little bit easier when you've got a brush tool chosen. We're going to hit V to get the move tool and do exactly the same thing, which is left click, hold, hover, drag our mouse back in, and then drop our fireworks. Now just like we did in the last image, we're going to use a blend mode, lighten, to bring out the fireworks. So boom, that's all we needed to do. Now this is a little bit, for one, it's changing the buildings, and we're going to fix that in just a second. But again, the fireworks have come through. That was all that we really cared about. It's all that's important for us right now. And then we also need to change it because clearly they're too big for the scene. So we're going to go ahead. It's already a smart object. We're going to hit edit, free transform, and just change the size while holding the shift key. All right, kind of line it up with the barge because it's the barge that is releasing the fireworks. Going ahead and saying go by hitting enter. Now you can see that we've got this sort of faded area. That's not exactly what we want, so we're going to go ahead and choose a mask. So white mask is revealing our fireworks. We can use the brush. Now this time we want to actually have a soft edged brush because we don't want to see huge like strokes within the mask in this particular case. So we're going to make it big, and we're going to start painting out what would have been the edge of that photo underneath. Getting it off of our buildings for sure, and sort of making the sky blend much better. And as we get closer here to the streamer, we're going to kind of clean up around the back. If we've taken too much of the stream out, all we need to do is have our foreground switch from black to white. We'll make this a bit smaller and add back in that one area of it kind of going up through the sky. Go back to black. So to do this, I'm actually using, you can either change it here by hitting this little two-directional arrow or using the X key. So I use the X to go back to black, and we will clean this up just a bit more. Now you can get very specific in how you want this to be cleaned up. If you don't want this light in here, you can get rid of that as well. But mostly we just want the buildings to be nice and clean. Okay, so there we go. So now you can't really tell that this had different edge for that other photo. All right, now we're ready to take the next image. So we come back here, we're going to close that because we're done with it. Come back, we'll grab these. All right, same exact process as we did before. We're going to go ahead, select the V key, our mouse changes. We have to unlock it to move it. So if you get that message, if you start to see something not happening, it's because the layer's locked. So hit OK. Either click or double click your lock to get rid of it. Grab, hover, come in and drop it. All right, so this time we just got to figure out another place to lay this one out. So maybe right around here. Same thing. Going to go ahead and change the blend mode to lighten. And there we go, another set of fireworks. Now I don't really want these overlaid, so I'm going to go ahead and hit free transform again. Well, maybe we'll bring these off to the right a little bit. Go ahead, hit enter to keep. Now we have the exact same problem we did before, which is faded buildings again. Go ahead and hit mask. Same thing. Grab our brush. Start painting away the lighter image. Now in this case, I can actually go right up against this. I can go over these other fireworks because I'm actually painting on a separate layer. So those fireworks are going to be unhindered by the mask that I'm creating. I just need to be careful as I get close to the edges of the fireworks that I just added. All right, one more to go. So I'm going to come back, close this one because we've used it. I'm going to come back and we're going to do the same thing one more time. So we unlock our layer, hit the V key, left click hold, hover, bring the mouse back in, and then drop. All right. Go ahead and hit enter. Now you can tell this time we already have a different scenario because the sky is actually darker around this particular set of fireworks. But what we do have is this top of a building right here. So we're going to have to clean that part up. But start off the same way, change our blend mode to lighten. Boom, our fireworks are in the sky. Here's where you can see that we have the top of the building. We certainly don't want to have that in there. So we hit mask again. Hit the mask, grab the brush, make sure our foreground is black, and start cleaning that up. Now in this case, it didn't lighten the buildings because the pixels in the firework themselves were already darker, so we just didn't have the same issue. And that's pretty much it. Now you can, at this point, move these images around as much as you want so that you can line them up and fill your space any way that you may need. All you need to do is select the layer, Control T for free transform, modify where the fireworks are coming from, and then boom, drop them back in with an enter, and then you're done. So we've gone from a fairly benign scene, which is this one here, that was all tilted back, to standing up nice, straight, and tall, getting a reflection, and adding in what we're reflecting. Super simple. Thanks a bunch for watching.